So, good evening everyone. Bruchim habaim. I can't tell you how absolutely delighted I am to have Michael Kretzmer here with us, and for many reasons. I haven't seen Michael in close on 50 years, if not more. We were in Habonim together. We used to have a lot of fun together at Habonim camp in Onrust, and I have to mention that because that has been a very huge part of my life, and I think was of Michael's too. And that the person who helped Michael was a schoolmate of mine, Richard Ravens, and they were really good friends in Zimbabwe as well. So many connections, and thank you. So Michael Kretzmer was born in Bulawayo, Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, in 1954. He left for England in 1976 and became a journalist and filmmaker, writing for the London Sunday Times and producing many documentary films for the BBC and other international broadcasters. After that, he did many other jobs, most notably building a small media company, which he sold in 2010. In 2019, Michael made his first trip to Lithuania. This trip made a profound impact on Michael, who took it upon himself the task of telling the truth about the massacre of Lithuanian Jewry. His acclaimed film, Accuse, winner of more than 70 awards at international film festivals, was completed in 2022. It premiered in Ranana this past Tuesday. Tonight at Kilat Yaramot will be the film's second screening in Israel and the first in Jerusalem. Michael, who's a frequent blogger on the Times of Israel, lives with his wife Joanna on their tiny farm in the English countryside, where he grows vegetables and entertains recalcitrant chickens. He's a father and grandfather, likes motorbikes, travel, and tourist study. So over to you, Michael. Thank you.
I really can't tell you how privileged I feel to be here tonight. Not just because it's Israel, not just because it's Jerusalem, but because I stand before so many of my friends in contact. This film has been a process of minor miracles. I began it by myself because I tend to get these violent enthusiasms where I can't stop myself. I'm really like a 5-year-old. And the desire to tell the story about Lithuania became a compulsion. I had no way of, I had no money, I had no contacts, I'm not good with important people or trusts or anything like that. But I had friends from Bulawayo. And that really is what got this film to where it is today, where it's been seen across the world, and where I honestly believe it's defining something that we, particularly us Litvak community, but really Jews generally, collectively feel. I can't tell you how amazing it is to be here, where I have my most beloved teacher, Janice Zaks, who taught me in Standard 3, honestly my best teacher. My best madracha, it was Pamela. Ravana over there, his family looked after me for long periods of time in Bulawayo, and many, many other people. And this is how this film has been distributed. It's been distributed by me calling my mate Richard after 50 years and saying, Richard, I've made a film. Can you produce it, please? He knew nothing about production, but he phoned this guy and that woman and so, and we collected 1,000 here and 1,000 there. I made the film for $30,000 with no marketing budget, and it's got across the world, really because of people like you, who are prepared to sustain 78 minutes of very painful and personal viewing. Because I think collectively we realize that this is a job that needs to be completed. That in my own family's case, nobody spoke about it. We spoke about the Holocaust, of course. It was the backdrop to all our lives. But we never spoke about the Lithuanian Holocaust because it was just too terrible to talk about. And I look on my grandparents and parents as generations with tremendous courage. Imagine hiding it. And I know they did it because of us. Because how can you bring normal children into the world and bring them up to have some sense of coherence and optimism with that degree of violence in our background? So I see what I've done as completing that circle, really. And I feel very strongly that this is a case, a demand for justice and honor. We'll take questions afterwards, but please be aware it is very painful viewing. for all of us. And if I may ask you to turn your phones to mute or silent, that would be really helpful. And once again, thank you so much for coming. Well, I went back to say Kaddish for my families because there was a name memorial. You saw it in Berger. And as the drape dropped, I found myself staring at probably 60, 70 Kretzmers. And suddenly so many secrets of my own family became revealed. The depression of my grandmother, the depression of my mother, the anger of my father. And all these things, so I suddenly realized that I was completing a circle here, that I was discovering all these secrets in one go. So I made this initial film, which was, I just followed all the events that you saw in Berger. We had this procession where a few townspeople put on the yellow stars and we all marched. And then after I'd made it, it was a nice little schmaltzy film. The best thing about it, actually, was the way it showed the kindness and the forgiving nature of the Jewish visitors, us. You know, honestly, we were more concerned by Lithuanian feelings than we were with our own. But once I'd finished it, I was asked by Lithuanian television to make a big glossy film about my letter to Lithuania, which of course flattered me. And I sort of went along with it, and they kept trying to offer me money before I'd done a single thing. They kept trying to pour money at me. I never took a penny, but I was curious about this. Nobody ever offers a video maker money before you've completed something, I promise you. And I suddenly realized the reason they were offering me money is because I was a Jew. Because they think a Jew can't say no to money. And at that stage, I started looking at Sylvia Foti and Grant and other people, Professor David Katz, a website called Defending History, which is an absolutely excellent resource, Ephraim Zurov, Ruta Vanagaita, and all these great people. And I was asking whether I could portray the facts of the Holocaust in Lithuania in the way I saw fit, which of course is the tradition of British or American or I'm sure Israeli TV producers, as long as there's an understanding that you do your research correctly. And then I started getting these like Soviet speak emails saying, oh, we have particular experts who are scientifically trained to understand the particular history and so blah, blah, blah. In other words, I realized I was in the hands of the Genocide Center. So I told them no thank you in very uncertain terms. And I resolved one day to make the film without them and make my own film that tried to tell the truth for the reasons that become clear. And that's what I did. And then that basically ruined my life for 3 years because I became utterly obsessed with this. I became utterly obsessed with the insult of it. How dare these people continually pretend to be our friends and effectively rewrite history to the point where in 20 years it would be the accepted norm that Lithuania had nothing to do with this. And the result was I phoned all my friends from Bulawayo, and it was through this strange Bulawayo post-Lithuania network where I managed to raise about $30,000, and that's what I made this film for $30,000. It's incredibly cheap. To my astonishment, it has swept across the world, really fired, I think, by the South African Jewish community. It's won almost 100 awards and selections, and I don't say this to boast about myself, because it's not me, it's the strength of the story. The story is compelling because it's a story for truth. And I really wish some of our Jewish organizations would take this more seriously. I'm sorry to have to tell you. Yad Vashem has refused to honor Sylvia Foti. They refused to show the picture, and the reason is because Lithuania is a very effective and an important ally of the Israeli Foreign Ministry. And I don't attack Israel for that. I don't feel this is Israel's fight, actually. Israel has enough fights to deal with. This is the fight of the Jewish people. This is something we should insist on. We should insist that we do not accept this Lithuanian insult, and we should insist that the truth be told. And that's essentially my story. Are there any questions? I'd be happy to answer them as best I can.
Yeah. Is there a lot of anti-Semitism in the country now?
I'm sorry?
Is there a lot of anti-Semitism in the country now?
It's hard for me to judge it. You know, the Lithuanians have been raised with this idea that they were actually the Jews' best friend, that they did everything they can to help them, that they had nothing to do with this, that the Lithuanians themselves suffered from 2 Holocausts. One was the communists, wink wink, by that they mean Jews, and the other was the Nazis.
and they are as fragrant as a rose and had nothing to do with it. So now we are confronting them with this new history, and they are absolutely terrified that the truth is going to come out. They have essentially suppressed this knowledge and information for 80 years, and they don't know what to do now. They don't know how to undo this damage. And to be honest, I almost feel sorry for them. Really, can you imagine having that terrible history yourself? I can think of nothing worse. Nonetheless, that doesn't stop us from demanding the truth. They've just got to deal with it. And fortunately, for the first time, and it's so rare that we have someone of the caliber of Sylvia Foti to champion not our cause, because she's actually doing it for Lithuania, but to champion the truth. And therefore, I feel it absolutely incumbent upon Jews as a moral responsibility to support her. That is why I'm so depressed that Yad Vashem refused to even give her a certificate saying, you are telling the truth. So in effect, we are now championing the liars, and we are denigrating the truth tellers.
Well, Yad Vashem has never recognized the Armenian genocide either.
This is a very good point. This is a very good point. She said that Yad Vashem has not spoken of the Armenian genocide, which is essentially the same thing. Slightly different in the sense that you'd think they'd take the trouble to champion the truth on the Jewish Holocaust, but I completely take your point.
Can you tell us more about the Grant guy and your how you became connected?
Right.
And, I mean, you described yourself as obsessed. I mean, he's like...
Oh, Grant takes obsession to an entirely new level.
Does he do anything else?
Yes, Grant is a very effective wealth manager, but for 35 years he has been doing nothing but this. He gets up at 7 o'clock in the morning and he goes to bed at 11 o'clock at night. He fits his work in very effectively because he's a clever guy between those hours, but essentially his whole life has been devoted to finding out the truth. He's an absolute warrior, and to my mind, he offends a lot of people. A lot of people will tell you, oh, he's toxic, he's terrible. And he does annoy a lot of people because he just tells the truth. He will never deviate from that, whatever he's offered. And he's the reason we're here today. He's the reason, his persistence, which is absolutely astonishing, has, I think, finally paid off. And I think finally he's been recognized for what he is, a warrior for our people.
And how did you connect?
Well, once I'd realized I was being bribed by the Genocide Center and refused their very kind offer, I found him online, and my early communication with him and Sylvia was entirely online because it was a COVID world. I couldn't go there, I couldn't speak to them. As soon as I could, we did it, but everything was conducted through Facebook and through WhatsApp and through technologies like that.
They'd already found each other when you came across them?
Only just. So this is a relatively recent story. The Lithuanians are very good at exploiting it. They know all our weaknesses. They know how schmaltzy we are. They know how sentimental we are. They know that if somebody nice, big, and blonde tells us that they like latkes in the Vilna Gaon, we melt. They visit every synagogue across the world, wherever there are Litvaks, to tell them how much they love them and the talented missing Jews, and we fall for it every time. We do not ask the hard questions. And I'm afraid we've been suckered by them for the best reason. They know also how much we want closure, how much we want to be known as human beings, and how much we want an end to this, and they exploit it. Yes?
How difficult is it to prove what they did? Because the Nazis, they've got so much documentation and film evidence, so if you want to prove, like Taflis,
Yes.
what the Lithuanians did, is that difficult?
No, it's not at all difficult. And it's not at all difficult, I would suggest, because of the Koniechovsky testimonies. There you have 123 eyewitness testimonies that were recorded, properly verified, and they tell you the full terrible story of what happened. The Lithuanians do not deny this, actually, when you confront them. They just don't teach it, and they just suppress it. As to whether there's a document that says Noreika signed a document saying, kill the Jews. No, he didn't, but neither did Eichmann and neither did Hitler. It's true the Wannsee documents show this very clear motive. But I would suggest so do the signatures of Noreika, because he signed for our deportation and our imprisonment. And also this picture of 2 weeks after the party. There he is celebrating. Pardon? There's a document where he's signed as the person in charge of the Jews of northern Lithuania. He's the one who signed the documents for our imprisonment and our deportations, which was the direct prelude to our murder. You know, I don't really care about their responses. I don't want their love. I don't need anything from them. But I do need the truth. And for me, this is a Jewish demand. What matters to me is Jewish pride and Jewish honor on behalf of the victims and behalf of ourselves. We're not a weak people. And that's why I put that list up. It was really to remind us just how significant we are in the world, to remind us of our own dignity and our own greatness. And a great people should demand justice, not go and beg for it and ask for it and bargain for it. We should demand it. You know, I'm not for tearing down statues, to be honest. I don't want them to tear down these statues. I just want them to add the words, "and Holocaust mass murderers." And then they can keep their stupid statues as much as they like. They can build them 100 foot high. In fact, I'll contribute to it. They've just got to say that. But also there was I think a beautiful symmetry about the story of Grant and Sylvia. But there was something neat about that. And something clear. You know, it was her grandfather who killed Grant's family. And Grant's passion is seductive. And it's powerful. So I think he represented our side well. Simon, sorry.
And it's not our job to worry about what the Lithuanians do or don't do in these things, but it is her job, and that's what she's taken on. That's what's so absolutely...
Sylvia, you mean?
Yes, yeah. Because
absolutely.
She's saying she loves Lithuania, and the only way forward from her point of view is to face what their history is. And it's amazing that you managed to, you know, that here she is in your film about what happened to us.
Yeah, I mean, I often see the Lithuanian community, particularly the diaspora, as similar to our diaspora community. They're a little bit paranoid. They've had a troubled history. They've suffered a lot over the centuries. They're secret. They're not. We're never secretive, but they're insular, which we sometimes are. So for Sylvia to go against her family, her community, her people, and her country is an act of huge moral courage. And I think this also issues a challenge, not only to the Gentile world, but to the Jewish world. Really, if we don't support this woman, what are we? She has issued it. She has almost obliged us to, or else we just ignore her.
What can we do?
Well, you can perhaps ask Yad Vashem to issue something that defends and honors her, and wherever you can. You know, I'm often asked, what do I think we should do? All I ask for is a statement of Jewish honor and a statement of Jewish pride. How we do it, this has been a democratized exercise throughout. As I say, we have no marketing budget. We have no budget. We have nothing. What we have are people's sentiments and thoughts, people who watch this, who think this is part of my story. So if you can think of a way of doing it, that would be marvelous. But I do think we should. And I think we've reached the stage, you know, we've had 1700 years of Jewish pragmatism in the face of anti-Semitism. 1700 years from, I take it from Constantine, when the Roman Empire became Christian. And I think we're strong enough now to formulate another response. People say you must fight anti-Semitism. It's a different issue in Israel. You're so lucky, and thank God for Israel. But in the diaspora, we're told to be quiet. I don't think that's the best way to fight it. I think the best way to fight it is to be strong and to be proud and to be loud about it, as Grant is. And I encourage you to try and think of ways. I'm not going to prescribe how we should do it. We are working on a few ideas. But if you can think of a way, this is as much your story as it is mine.
One more question about Hebrew. Is there any way that you've been thinking to get Hebrew narrative or Hebrew subtitles?
It has been subtitled into Hebrew. Last week we did it. And I'm honestly, I can tell you now, there is nothing I would like more than the Israeli Jewish public to become involved in this. Because you alone have the strength to deal with this. In the diaspora, we don't. But Israel and I would say New York are the places where we can really make things happen and oblige them. They are terrified by this, by the way. They were due to give a statement on this. And after some of you know what happened in South Africa, the South African Jewish Report issued it, put it online for a week. We were expecting 6,000 views. In fact, we got about 118,000. which again, it's not to do with me or that, it's to do with the story. This is our collective story. We all saw it in our grandparents and in our parents. And so if there's that uptake in this, there's nothing we can't achieve in this. And I must tell you, what we're offering Lithuania is something good. We're offering them redemption. If they weren't so dumb enough, they'd see it. But they refuse to see it because they've had 80 years of propaganda. They could be liberated by this. And many of them know it. Last week we also pumped it into Lithuania with Lithuanian subtitles. So we're awaiting the figures. I'm expecting 6 or 7. But you can't keep this down forever. And we're going to do it regularly. We do it through dissident stations there. And already we've had some really interesting responses of people who are recognizing what's happening. And once that happened, then we can afford to be kindly and obliging. But first they have to recognize the truth, in my opinion.
How can we access the Hebrew version?
I would suggest you try and get a showing. It could be here. Maybe we work on the technology a bit. Or in a cinema. And we've got it. It's free. I've never charged for this. For me, the most important thing is the showing is to have a discussion afterwards. That is as or even more important than the film itself. But I will make it available to anybody who wants to show it. I haven't, no. And if somebody can...
I gave you a link.
Pam gave me a link today to the Cinematheque, so we're going to do that. But as I say, we have no marketing budget, we have no marketeers, so it really does require people like Hillary. Hillary, out of the blue, called me and said, that's why we're here tonight. And I can't tell you how pleased I am to be here, because Hillary said, why don't I show it at my shul? Yeah. And here we are. For me, the greatest marketing tool in the world is people like you, who subscribe to the ideas that we're trying to represent. And that's worth more than any amount of money. We are trying to get money for particular things. So to re-edit it so it's shorter, because it is long, particularly for a non-Jewish audience, to create different versions for education. I'm also working on an idea of creating an education kit that enables people gracefully to deal with uncomfortable histories, which I think would be a tremendous resource, largely based on the truth and reconciliation work in South Africa. Am I optimistic about this? No. I think 80 years of lies has an extreme corrosive effect, both morally and intellectually. But with Sylvia, we have our best chance. And really, she is also a light for Eastern Europe. Because once this happens in Lithuania, it'll be very difficult for other countries to continue with their lies. And they're all at it, to be honest with you. I don't think anybody as egregiously as Lithuania. Of course they are. Storm in the Land of Rain, if you can buy a copy, that would help her both financially and in other ways. And if you get a group of people together, she'd come here at the drop of a hat. She loves Israel. And she loves the Jewish people, I have to tell you. We would be prepared to enable any idea you come up with. We will oblige you. Yeah.
Why did you change the title of the book?
I'm sorry? Well, she was right to. Because he wasn't a Nazi. He was actually sent to Stutthof concentration camp, where he had clean sheets and a nice place and comfortable food, so he wasn't treated like the Jews were, who were murdered there. And that was in honor of his Jew killing. But he wasn't a Nazi. He refused to join the SS because he was a Lithuanian nationalist. He was a different kind of anti-Semite. But a Nazi he wasn't. And Sylvia was uncomfortable with that name, and I actually agree with her, because it's more accurate.
Was the movie shown in the Lithuanian community in Chicago?
Not yet. However, in November, it will be shown in Chicago. Whether they'll flock to it, I have my doubts. But again, they can't close their eyes and hold their hands over their ears forever. As long as we reinforce this idea that actually this presents them with a form of liberation, as it did Germany. And one of the things I'm really concentrating on in the next few months, if I have the resources and the ability, is to focus on Germany as an ally in this. As I see it, everybody wins out of understanding this, particularly Lithuania, actually. But for us, for the Jewish people, we're not doing it for that reason, in my opinion. We're doing this as a statement of pride and honor. And we're saying we're not going to accept this dehumanization. Because what these lies do is they dehumanize us again. They again make us subhuman, as though we will accept this nonsense. And that is absolutely unacceptable.
Also educate them. You're not touching that.
Absolutely.
I mean, Jews, unfortunately, do not know.
No, indeed we don't know. And it's so sad, the reason we don't know. We don't know because it was just too painful to transmit from generation to generation. That's my take on it anyway. Because none of us discussed it at home, as far as I can see.
Come from a different culture where it was all the time, non-stop.
Or it was either or, I think.
Ah, but the Lithuanian Holocaust, or the...
Hungarian.
No, that's right. There was something particular, I think, about the Lithuanian Holocaust because of its personal, rural nature. Anyway, that's just my own thought. I may be wrong.
Michael, I have a question about the name of the movie.
Yeah.
When a lot of people hear the name, they think it's connected to the Dreyfus trial.
Well, I think it is connected to the Dreyfus
But
trial.
the question is, do you want any kind of, do you want people to immediately think of the Dreyfus trial when you hear the name?
For me, Zola's phrase, Accuse, was a statement where you accuse something because you know you are right. There's no ambiguity. And I wanted the echo of that accusation to penetrate this debate. I'm not sure it was a good idea. I still think, was it a good idea? Maybe I should have put J'accuse Lithuania. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to make every Lithuanian guilty, because Lithuanians are not guilty. Guilt, according to Jewish law and any decent legal system, does not transmit intergenerationally. So the irony is they're not guilty. They are being made guilty. They are being made accomplices by their government's decisions and actions. So anyway, that's the background to the name. I'm still not sure it was a good name, to be honest. But it has a power in the echo of Dreyfus and Zola, and that's why I used it, for better or for worse.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
This is called the Megillat HaShoah, written by Professor Avigdor
How
Sheinman.
wonderful.
It's certainly worth reading. This is a Haggadah with a teacher's guide, a leader's guide, which was written by actually Noam Tzion and David Dishon, who many of you probably know. David Dishon, I went to high school with him.
Wonderful.
Okay. This is a recent book written by Rabbi Benji Siegel, who gave a lecture here last month on Purim.
Fantastic. That's just wonderful.
This is from the Yekev, or the home of Tzvi and Ruth Fine, a wonderful bottle of wine.
That's so kind.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you all very much. Honestly, I can't tell you how much this evening meant to me. Thank you very much.